Okay, Mozart, Concerto in G, exposition. This is going to be part 3 of 4. In this one, I will cover measures 60 through, where does this end? The end of measure 77, okay? For most people, this is the most difficult part of the exposition. So this is where you might end up spending the most technical time. This is also a great time to point out with any piece you're working on, make sure to listen to it in context. So listen to this with piano, listen to it with orchestra, study the score. Anything you're doing, the flute is only one small portion of it. So make sure you pull out the whole thing and know what's going on. It really does show in your audition whether you know the whole score or not. Okay, there it is. Okay, we start off with some thirds. So we start off with A major thirds in measure 60. To make these feel easier, practice with uneven rhythms, but I also recommend that you practice your full range thirds in A major and then also in D major for measure 62. So if you can do them full range, then just doing that one little tiny bit of them that's written into the concerto doesn't feel so hard. So get really comfortable with them full range. And we're going to slur groups of 2 in these. And in general, through this whole section, we want to follow the shape of the line with our dynamics. So when we go up, we want to grow. When we come down, we can generally soften just a little bit. So we're giving a lot of shape to this, really just highlighting what Mozart has already written. Remember that your appoggiaturas, like in measure 61, it's going to get half of the note. So the B is an eighth note and the A is an eighth note. Everybody always asks, where do I breathe through this part? There's a few different ways you can do it. Here's what I just did in the recording, and this is my personal preference. I like to breathe after the downbeat of measure 62, and then I don't breathe again until after the downbeat of 66. Okay? If you need to, you could add a breath in after the downbeat of 64, or you could just breathe after the downbeat of 64 and 66. Okay, so there's 3 different places you can breathe. You can breathe in 2 of them preferably, or in all 3 of them. In measure 63, I want you to keep in mind that you're going to the next downbeat. So our arrival point is measure 64. Okay, not typically. Often you hear this played with the high F sharp as the high point. When you listen to it in context with the orchestra, that doesn't really make any sense. We need to keep going to the G. Okay, which is why I don't like to breathe there. I like to just keep going. What else do I need to tell you about this? Okay, let's look at measures 66 and 67. The trills here can be a little tricky. Again, I recommend practicing it in its most basic form first. So take out all the ornamentation. Okay, so I would get really comfy with it like that, with a metronome, always, always, always with a metronome. 120 is your gold tempo, by the way. And then I would start adding in some of the ornamentation. So before I add in the trill in measure 66, I would add the appoggiatura on the A, which is going to be a 16th note on the downbeat. Your A gets a 16th note, your G gets an 8th note, and then the F sharp gets a 16th note as printed. Okay? Once I'm comfortable with that, then I would add in the trill, making sure that nothing else changes about the rhythm. And then the next one in measure 67, you could repeat exactly the same thing you just did. Or if you want to vary it up a little bit, typically when we have repetition in measures like that, we do something different with it the second time. I did is I did a turn on beat G instead. So a turn is 5 notes where you start on the note G, go up A, back to G, down a note to F sharp, and back to G. So it's 5 notes. And then you still have your A 16th note after. And again, practice it without the turn so you're confident about the rhythm, then you can add the turn in. And your trill at the end of measure 68. That's going to be your first trophy for that C sharp trill, and you will add in your resolution notes again, which are B and C sharp. In measure 70, you can play these as even 16th notes if you want, or you can do what I did and play them like grace notes. Because Mozart notated them differently, it's my belief and a lot of people's belief that he intended for them to be grace notes in opposition to the 16th notes that we hear in measure 60. However, if you're really, really strictly following the rules of the classical period, you would play them as half of the following notes, and they would be 16th notes. So this is just a long-winded way of saying either interpretation that you want to do is correct. You should choose the way that sounds cleaner for you, the way that you are more accurate and more even. So it might be, or, okay, that is up to you. And measure 72, 73, and then 74, 75, those are pairs. Put hairpins under those measures, and also make sure you don't slow down here. This is a very lyrical part compared to all the techniques surrounding it, and we all tend to slow down when things get more lyrical. You've really got to keep that pulse going. The orchestra just keeps doing those eighth notes underneath you. You can see I'm showing you a little bit of my dynamics as I play right there. In measure 77, I like to keep those last 3/8 notes pretty strong and nice and separate or staccato. Some people like to trail away there. It's up to you, whatever you can do with your best sound and in tune.